At first, though, it's been a very emotional week in EastEnders. Nigel's condition worsens. Nigel, who has dementia, is now in hospital after he had a fall in his care home. Now, after arriving back on the square just last night, Grant is furious to learn that his best mate was put into a care home in the first place.
Look, is Nigel up yet? Because it would be nice to see someone who's actually pleased to see me.
Grant, he's not at Phil's. He's been in a care home for the last couple of months.
Are you telling me Phil has dumped Nige in a care home? Go! I reckon you're having a go at everyone because you feel guilty. You ain't done enough for Nige. I've done what I've done. I've done everything, Grant. All right? Everything. And I would swap places with Nigel in a heartbeat. But I can't, can I? I can't. And it don't matter. It don't matter how much I want something, all right? Because it ain't gonna happen. It ain't gonna happen for me. It ain't gonna happen for you. It ain't gonna happen for anyone. All right? Because it's over. It's over, Grant, all right? Nigel has gone. He's gone.
Well, as I said, very emotional scenes. And, you know, deciding to move a loved one into care can leave you feeling very, very guilty. We have talked a lot about this on Loose Women, haven't we, Carl, over the years? All of us, most of us have had some kind of experience. I know you did with your mum, all of you. And I don't think it matters how you do it, when you do it, whether you all agree, don't agree, you're always left with this nugget of guilt.
Always. I think it's probably the hardest decision me and my family made with my mum. You know, we looked after her as long as we could. You know, between us, she wanted to stay in a sheltered accommodation, but then that became where it was just too dangerous. You know, she was leaving electric kettles on a gas hob and not even noticing, and my brother would go around and be smoke, and then I'd have her during the day, and then my sister would have her at night, or all of those things we did. And more and more and more, it was getting really, really difficult. You know, she'd get up at 3 in the morning and we'd have to put double locked doors because she'd think it was daytime and just wander, you know, all those things. And Kira was tiny at the time, I think she was 3. And she came down one morning and said, oh, Mummy, Gran's given me all these sweets. And it was all my mum's tablets. Now, the thing, and they were red, they looked like Smarties. Now, luckily, Kira was the child out of all 3 of my children that never, ever put stuff in her mouth. If that had been the boys, they'd have eaten them. But she never did. And I was like, oh, we'll save them for Grandma. And it was just getting more and more. And then she just needed more and more care. And we were working, and we had young kids, and we were doing the best that we could, especially my sisters, my other sisters who lived there at the time. It was the hardest decision ever to even suggest. And we let my mum choose, actually. And the one that we thought was going to be perfect for her, because it was all super modern and it was gorgeous and it was newly built, she walked in, hated it. I'm not saying here, and she picked one that we wouldn't have picked. But it was her choice. She didn't quite understand what was happening, to be fair. Now, still living with all this guilt, I cannot tell you the amount of people that trolled us over it.
Really?
Like, how dare you? Your mum's brought up all 8 of you, not one of you can look after... Yeah, we could. We could all look after my mum, but it wouldn't be safe. She got the really aggressive form. She had no idea where she was. She needed 24-hour supervision. We still got this guilt, and then we got loads of lovely people, but the amount of people are going, how can you sleep at night? And I was like, Grant, I tell you how, I don't sleep at night. None of us do. We cry every night because we've had to make this decision. And now...
It's very easy for people to judge when they
haven't been in it. And also some people go, well, I looked after my mum, and I want to go, that's fantastic, or my dad. And normally it's because, you know, they've both retired, so they're both at home. But when you're not, and you've got a young family and all of that, and my mum would be the first to say, I know, we knew our mum, she'd be the first to say is, don't do that. As I have now said to my children, if I get this, I've said, because it's my biggest fear, put me somewhere nice and safe and walk away and don't feel guilty. And it doesn't matter how many times I say that to them, I know they will. But I just want them to know, and I want it to be out there, that I have given them permission, because I don't want them to go through what I went through with my mum.
Do you know what's interesting? We were obviously talking about this, and we've talked about it a lot because it's happened in our families. And I was talking about it, and you said You don't have to defend yourself, Ruth.
No, you
and
do,
that
though, all the
almost
time.
sounds like, and I find myself doing that, of saying, oh no, but she's getting the best care, and if she was with me, it would be lonely because I'm not there. And you feel like you are defending your decision. And I think people have got to understand, until you're in that situation, it is a really difficult decision. And ultimately, you are making the best decision for that person. And I always say to people, it's hard, but you're making it with love because you love them.
so
and
much.
actually, if it was better for my mum to have her at my house and have a carer, but then she'd be on her own with one carer. Where she is, she's got lots of people, lots of activities, different faces. She's very sociable, my mum. So I think you have to make the decision and ignore the noise, go with your gut, what's right for you and your family.
But you both have talked about the guilt that you feel that you shouldn't be feeling. But I think the big factor here is dementia. And that was not something that was never talked about when I was growing up. And obviously, the families as I grew up tended to look after the elderly relatives, and we just did not discuss this. I wrote a column in the newspaper recently about the fact that for some people it is easier to put mum or granddad in a care home because you live so far away from them. It's so inconvenient. What's really changed in our society is not just the rise of dementia, but the rise of women working and having a decent career and wanting to stay in that career for longer, and families being fractured, moving all over the country. So like in my own family, my mother decided to move back to North Wales, miles from us. My sister and I were not involved in the decision. She just did it. And
so she should have been allowed to make that decision then.
But obviously, as she
life,
got older, it was really, really tricky, and we could never tell how ill she really was. And we had to rely on her sister, who was also elderly, to relay to us, well, I don't know how mum's doing. Now, when Peter's mum got really sick, his dad had already sadly died, and he took the decision to move back in with his mum because he could do that, because his work allowed him to do that. And his sister visited every single day. So they took the decision because his mother refused to leave her home. She wanted to end her life in her own home.
But then
and so they had to accommodate
exactly what we said. Every case, every person,
Everybody's
Judy,
different.
everybody's lives are different. And you can't judge.
You can't. I've seen from both sides, from the personal side and from being a social worker. And I think what hit me about what we just saw with EastEnders, you find that it's the person who comes and goes that is the most angry with the decision that is made by the person who is there 24/7, who's had to deal with the falls, who's had to deal with the phone calls in the middle of the night, have to deal with the worry about them losing weight, absconding, all those kind of different issues. And I think, like you all said, it is one of the most hardest and difficult decisions to ever make. I've supported many people through it. I've been in it personally. And I think the issue is as well is that there's cultural aspects for one, living conditions for one. We're living in smaller properties, like you said, families, now single parents, living abroad. But also there is a stigma when it comes to care homes. And unfortunately, some of them do not match up to the great, care commission quality. It doesn't, and some do. And I think until things like the stigma of care homes and money's invested in them, that we know that we are placing loved ones in places where they're generally going to be looked after, and it's going to be created around their identity, their culture, the things that help them to remember certain things so that they continue to have dignity and pride. This is where we're going to come against a battle. And sometimes the thing is about ego. I'm not saying for all. The ego leads you to feel like, well, I have to do this. I don't want anyone to be talking about me. I would say to you, from a professional position, is this the best decision for your loved one? Like you said, you can end up leaving your loved one most of the time of the day. Before I was a social worker, I was a carer, and I used to go in, I'd have my list of people that I'd have to go in and physically care for them. And there would be times it really got me. I would go into a sheltered accommodation or someone's home. I'd be the only person they'd see until 4 hours later. So if I'd cared them, washed them down, and left, and God forbid they'd had a bit of an accident, personal accident, they're not going to see someone again until four hours. And a lot of the time, I would definitely like go over because I'd be sitting with them doing things that is not supposed to be done, making them food. That's not supposed to be what you're doing. You're supposed to just be in and out. So I think it really comes down to the personal choice. And there's probably people right now who is in that situation, and it is such a sensitive one. I hope that you've got the right support. I hope that you make the best decision for your loved ones, and understand that no matter what decision you make, it is about the love and the care and the dignity of that person.
There's so much involved, as we've all said. Every story we've told is slightly different, slightly different circumstances. So I just say, you know, you
the
are
guilt is all the same.
the guilt. I mean, I'm just going to say the guilt doesn't really go away. It just doesn't. It's just human nature, I suppose. But you know, you are making that decision because you love that person. If anything that we have been talking about resonates with you and you do need some help or support, then go to itv.com/helplines and you'll find lots of information there. We'll take